Ever wondered what happened to the mischievous cast of Dennis the Menace after all these years? The iconic troublemaker and his quirky neighbors have taken unexpected paths, some facing life-altering challenges while others reinvented themselves in surprising ways. From Hollywood fame to quiet retirements, their journeys since the film's release have been full of twists and turns. In 2025, their lives look vastly different from their days of playful chaos. Some have stepped away from the spotlight, while others continue to make waves in new ventures. Join us as we uncover where they are now. You won't believe how much has changed. Herbert Anderson, who portrayed Henry Mitchell in Dennis the Menace, was 42 when he stepped into the role of Dennis's soft-spoken, perpetually flustered father. Known for his gentle warmth and deadpan responses, Anderson gave depth to a character who might have otherwise been a sitcom stereotype. Off-screen, his life grew increasingly difficult after the show ended in 1963. Typecast as the idealized suburban dad, roles dwindled. He divorced his first wife, Margaret Grant, in 1972 after 20 years of marriage marked by infidelity and depression. They had 3 children, Matthew, Claire, and Thomas, none of whom remained close to him after the split. His second marriage, to publicist Rachel Browning, ended in 1985 when she left him for a younger actor. Financial troubles plagued him in later years after poor investments and a failed theater venture. Anderson struggled with alcoholism, and he spent his final decade in near isolation in Palm Springs, rarely seen in public. He died on June 11, 1994, at age 77 from complications related to a stroke. Despite the fame he once held, he died nearly penniless, with an estate valued at only $60,000, much of it consumed by medical debt and legal fees from his second divorce. Gloria Henry, who played the ever-patient Alice Mitchell, was 36 when she charmed audiences as Dennis's nurturing mother. She radiated poise and calm amid sitcom chaos, but her real life was anything but tranquil. A former starlet from the 1940s, she struggled to maintain her career after being pigeonholed as a wholesome housewife. Her marriage to architect Craig Elwood was fraught with volatility, marked by his affairs, violent temper, and periods of estrangement. They had 3 children, Lisa, Jeffrey, and Alexandra, though Henry's demanding work schedule often left them feeling neglected. After divorcing Elwood in 1977, Henry never remarried. By the 1980s, roles dried up, and she was forced to take low-paying appearances at fan conventions to supplement her modest pension. She spent her final years in a small rent-controlled apartment in Los Angeles, reportedly battling early dementia. Henry passed away on April 3, 2021, at the age of 98. Despite her fame, her estate was modest, estimated around $120,000, mostly consisting of memorabilia and dwindling royalties from syndication. Joseph Karns, forever remembered as the irascible yet oddly lovable George Wixson, was 52 when he took the role. His portrayal of the perpetually annoyed neighbor provided some of the show's best laughs, but behind the scenes, Karns lived a cloistered and melancholy life. A lifelong bachelor, he lived with his mother until her death in 1956, after which he reportedly became increasingly withdrawn. Known for being a perfectionist and hypochondriac, he suffered from chronic anxiety that led to frequent hospital visits. He had few close friends and was estranged from his only sibling due to a decades-old inheritance dispute. He was deeply affected by the pressures of television and turned to prescription drugs to sleep. Tragically, Karns died of a cerebral hemorrhage on February 17, 1962, just days after falling ill on set. He was only 55. At the time of his death, he lived alone in a modest Hollywood apartment. His estate was valued at roughly $150,000, mostly held in trust, with no known heirs. His passing led to the introduction of a new character, George's brother John Wixson, in a last attempt to save the show's dynamic. Gil Gordon, who replaced Karns as John Wixson, brought veteran charm and a biting wit to the role when he joined the cast at age 56. Known for his booming voice and impeccable timing, Gordon had a long comedic resume, including work with Lucille Ball. However, his time on Dennis the Menace was short-lived, and after the show's cancellation in 1963, he found it increasingly difficult to secure meaningful roles. Despite a seemingly happy marriage to Virginia Curley, the couple remained childless and privately battled the pain of 2 miscarriages. Gordon grew bitter with Hollywood and retreated to his ranch in Borrego Springs, California. He refused most interviews, citing betrayal by an industry that had forgotten him. In 1990, Virginia passed away from cancer, leaving him emotionally shattered. Gordon's health declined rapidly in the years that followed, exacerbated by diabetes and vision loss. He died on June 30, 1995, at 89, nearly blind and reportedly disoriented. His estate, primarily composed of the ranch and residuals from his Lucille Ball days, was estimated at $400,000. Much of it was left to a local animal shelter per his final wishes. Sarah Seagar, who portrayed the gentle Eloise Wixson, the endlessly tolerant wife of George Wixson, was 54 when she joined Dennis the Menace in 1962. Her character offered a calm counterbalance to the cranky George, embodying maternal warmth. But Sarah's real life was marked by shadows. Married to actor Ezra Stone, their union was a tense one, strained by Ezra's career stagnation and Sarah's own resentment toward always playing secondary roles. They had one son, Michael, whose estrangement following a drug conviction in 1978 caused her intense heartbreak. Sarah's career faltered post-Dennis, and she took up teaching high school drama, often drinking heavily in private. She endured early-onset dementia by the late 80s, cared for by a distant niece. Deeply lonely, she died on August 12, 1990, from complications of pneumonia at the age of 82. At her passing, her estate was modest, valued around $250,000, most of it tied up in a Pasadena bungalow and royalties from scattered TV reruns. George Caesar, best remembered as Sergeant Mooney, the by-the-book but endearing police officer, was 49 when he brought a lovable rigidity to the part in 1959. Behind the uniform, Caesar's life was a quiet descent into obscurity. After the show's end, his typecasting as gruff authority figures dried up, and offers stopped coming. Married twice, his second wife, Dolores, left him in 1974 after years of silence in a cold, childless home. He reportedly had a daughter from a previous relationship, but never acknowledged her. Depression took root, and he lived alone in a cramped Culver City apartment, relying on VA benefits. A heart attack took him on June 7, 1979, at age 69. Few attended the funeral. His estate, estimated at just $70,000, consisted mostly of a dilapidated car, stacks of uncashed residual checks, and dusty police memorabilia. The Mooney smile he showed on screen hid decades of private regret. Willard Waterman, who played Mr. Quigley, the cheerful neighborhood grocer, was 47 when he took the role in 1959. His charm brought a kind-hearted air to the show, but it masked the insecurity of an actor who once led radio's The Great Gildersleeve and had since watched his career spiral. Willard married fellow actress Nancy Lowell, and they had 2 daughters, Patricia and Elise, who both later distanced themselves due to his growing bitterness and obsession with being forgotten. He tried reviving his career with stage roles in the early 70s, but alcoholism and chronic arthritis cut that short. By the late 80s, Waterman was almost entirely reclusive, living in a rent-controlled apartment in Santa Monica, estranged from family and friends. He died on February 2, 1995, at the age of 80 from congestive heart failure. His estate, worth about $180,000, included unsold memorabilia and small investment accounts. He left no will. His daughters declined to claim the assets. Elizabeth Harrower, who brought grace and quiet wisdom to Mrs. Elkins at age 41 in 1959, was known for her nurturing on-screen presence. Off-screen, her life was riddled with unrealized ambition and personal disappointment. After Dennis the Menace, Harrower drifted to soap operas and then out of the spotlight entirely. She married playwright Robert Castan in 1955, and they had one child, Julie, who later became a casting director but rarely spoke of her mother. The marriage ended in 1972 following Elizabeth's mental health struggles, including institutionalization for depression and severe anxiety. She lived her final years in a small assisted living facility in Los Angeles, rarely visited and often confused. Her passion for writing scripts went unrecognized, most never produced. Harrower passed away on December 10, 2003, at 85, due to complications from a stroke. Her estate was modest, valued at approximately $120,000, largely from her SAG pension and residuals, which quietly funded her care in her final years. Charles Seel, who portrayed the gentle and sagacious Mr. Hathaway, was 61 when he joined Dennis the Menace in 1959, bringing a sense of wisdom and neighborly warmth to the small screen. Off-camera, Seel endured a troubled life steeped in solitude and heartache. Married once to a stage actress named Ruth Elwood, their relationship grew cold as his career waned. The couple had one son, David, who distanced himself from his father due to Seel's strict demeanor and emotional distance. After leaving Dennis the Menace, Charles struggled to find steady roles and often took uncredited bit parts in B-movies, which led to bouts of depression and reclusiveness. He was nearly destitute by the mid-1970s, living in a cramped apartment and surviving on modest pension checks. Estranged from most of his family and haunted by missed opportunities, he passed away on July 19, 1980, at age 82, due to complications from emphysema. His estate was modest, estimated around $45,000, and left to a distant niece, the only one who occasionally visited him in his final years. Jane North, who played Dennis Mitchell, became a national sensation at just 8 years old in 1959, embodying the mischievous, towhead boy next door. But the fame was a double-edged sword. Behind the scenes, Jay suffered intense pressure and emotional abuse from his aunt and uncle, who acted as his guardians. After Dennis the Menace ended, he struggled to escape the image of the precocious troublemaker, leading to years of failed auditions and bit parts. He married 3 times. His first marriage to Cindy Hackney produced 2 children, Kimberly and Ryan, but ended in a bitter custody battle. His second marriage to a makeup artist collapsed amid rumors of infidelity, and his third, to a woman named Elizabeth, remains distant and childless. Now 73, Jay lives a quiet, reclusive life in Florida, occasionally appearing at fan conventions but largely avoiding the spotlight. He has battled depression and PTSD from childhood trauma. His current estate is estimated at $300,000, mostly from residuals and public appearances. Sylvia Field, who brought a gentle grace to the role of Martha Wilson, the ever-patient wife of George, was 58 when the series began. A veteran stage actress, her soft-spoken elegance made her a beloved figure on screen. Yet, her private life was marred by sadness. Married to actor Ernest Truex, their union was troubled by professional rivalry and emotional detachment, though they stayed together until his death in 1973. The couple had one daughter, Catherine, who struggled with addiction and estrangement. After the show, Field faded into obscurity, taking on only a handful of small roles before retiring completely. She spent her later years alone in a modest Pasadena home, rarely seen in public. Her final years were quiet, marked by declining health and fading memories. Sylvia passed away on July 31, 1998, at the remarkable age of 97 from natural causes. Her estate, primarily consisting of her modest home and savings, was valued at approximately $200,000. Jeannie Russell, who portrayed the bright yet domineering Margaret Wade at just 9 years old, was a standout as Dennis's sharp-tongued classmate. Though she became a familiar face to audiences, her early brush with fame was a mixed blessing. After the show ended, she faced years of typecasting, often reduced to roles as bratty or precocious girls well into her teens. Jeannie later turned to chiropractic medicine, finding a second career that brought more stability. Despite outward success, her personal life was complicated. She married a musician named Carl Jennings, and they had 3 children, Max, Olivia, and Paul. The marriage ended after 14 years amid claims of infidelity and emotional neglect. She later entered a long-term relationship with a fellow chiropractor that quietly ended in 2012. Though she maintains a public face at fan conventions and nostalgic television events, Jeannie has spoken openly about her struggles with anxiety and depression stemming from childhood fame. Now 74, she lives alone in Los Angeles, with an estimated estate of $750,000, mostly from her medical practice and residual royalties. Irene Tedro, who portrayed Mrs. Lucy Elkins on Dennis the Menace, was 52 years old when she took on the role of the warm, sage-like neighbor who offered gentle guidance amid the neighborhood chaos. Her performance exuded maternal grace, masking a life far more turbulent off-screen. Married only once to literary agent Robert C. Detzer, their union was marred by long absences and emotional distance. They had one daughter, Ellen, who became estranged from Irene during the 1980s after a bitter family dispute over inheritance. Tedro struggled to find consistent work after the show's end, often relegated to minor television appearances and voiceover work. She battled chronic depression and alcoholism in her later years, quietly entering rehab in 1986. Financial difficulties plagued her final decade, forcing her to sell off much of her memorabilia and move into a modest apartment in Encino. She passed away on March 10, 1995, at the age of 87 due to complications from pneumonia. At the time of her death, her estate was estimated at just $180,000, most of which went to cover medical debts and legal fees. Mary Wicks, who played the stern yet hilarious Miss Perkins, was 49 when she joined Dennis the Menace in 1959, bringing with her a signature mix of biting wit and exasperated charm. Behind her commanding screen presence was a deeply private and lonely woman. Wicks never married and was widely rumored to have harbored unrequited feelings for fellow actor Agnes Moorehead. She once admitted in a rare interview that she turned down 3 proposals in her 30s, afraid that domestic life would smother her ambition. While she maintained a robust character acting career into the 1980s, the decline of roles for aging women left her isolated and disillusioned with Hollywood. She lived alone in a small condo in Burbank, surrounded by books and fading photographs. Friends say she grew increasingly bitter and reclusive, particularly after suffering a series of strokes in the early 90s. Mary Wicks passed away on October 22, 1995, at the age of 85 from surgical complications. Her estate, valued at roughly $900,000, was left in part to a local animal shelter and a scholarship fund for aspiring actresses. Charles Lane, who embodied Mr. Fosdick, the grouchy, sharp-tongued businessman on Dennis the Menace, was 54 years old in 1959 and already typecast as the cranky authority figure. Though beloved for his comedic timing and iconic scowl, Lane's real life was laced with regret. He was married to Ruth Covell for over 70 years, though their union was often cold and marked by long silences. They had 2 children, George and Barbara, both of whom distanced themselves from their father due to his rigid discipline and emotional unavailability. Lane saw his career dwindle in the 70s, eventually turning to stage work in small-town productions that barely covered his travel costs. In the 1980s, he fell into a deep depression after the suicide of his son George. Lane lived his last years in obscurity, cared for by a private nurse in a modest Santa Monica bungalow. He passed away on July 9, 2007, at the astonishing age of 102 from natural causes. At the time of his death, his estate was estimated at $1.5 million, largely stemming from decades of frugal living and wise investments in municipal bonds. Who is your favorite character from Dennis the Menace? How does it feel knowing that some of the actors are no longer with us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this type of content, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future uploads. Thank you for your support.